So that brings us to today. We have, attempted adoption, IUI, we've attempted foster care, we've attempted IVF, and we've lost a total of 5 babies to count, and are at least 14,000 in the hole. That doesn't include the $2,000 that we lost on the adoption attempt, the IUIs, the Clomid, all that stuff we did years ago. At this point, we're probably about $20,000 that we've spent on all of this out of pocket, not with insurance or anything like that. So why IVF? So IVF at this point is a couple reasons. Number one, we did attempt adoption and we would love to adopt. We honestly have a huge heart for adoption. And I've always said since I was little that I would adopt even if I could have children. So adoption's always been my first plan, not my backup plan. And when we got married, the only reason we didn't at that point was because you had to be a certain age. So now that we've gone through everything we've gone through, adoption is still very much part of our heart and what we would love to do, but we just don't think that right now is the time. It's kind of too close to when everything happened. And with both of us being in school, there's a lot of requirements for adoption as far as what your housing is like, your income is like, your stability, if you're both working full time, things like that, which with us going to school, that's all kind of, mix matched. It's not always going to be that consistent. So we just don't think that right now is the right time for adoption. As far as foster care, the same thing. With foster care, foster care is an amazing thing, but you have to be with those kids. You have to drop them off at school at 7 and pick them up at 3, and you have to take them to doctor's appointments, and which you have to do with your normal kids too, but that comes later, and that's something you can kind of control. This is something to where the government literally tells you this is when their doctor's appointment is, and that's it. So really it's your full-time job. It's not that you just have children and they're a part of your family and you can schedule their doctor's appointments when it's convenient. In a lot of ways, you're very much tied to whatever they tell you. And with us both being in school, it just wouldn't be fair to our foster child or foster children to be divided, if that makes sense. So that's why we're not going down that road right now. Not to even include the fact that I don't know if we even feel called to do that, if that's part of our story. But so, we had contemplated being a childless couple, which at this point I am so happy to say we're both really content with. If IVF doesn't work, then we are both 100% at peace with being a childless couple. And it takes time to get there. That doesn't happen overnight. It's not like it just clicks, or you can say, I want to be at peace, so I will be. It doesn't happen that way. But when we found out we were moving out to the East Coast, I did some research on the best fertility clinics in America because of our horrible, horrible experience at our old clinic, and found out that Shady Grove Fertility is one of the best, and they have an amazing program called Shared Risk. This is you have to submit all your medical records, you have to submit, you have to do an interview on the phone. There's all these requirements to get approved for Shared Risk, and after a lot of hard work, we got approved. And what's so great about Shared Risk is its base price is $22,000, but that gives you up to 6 tries at fresh IVF, up to 6 embryo transfers, like frozen embryos. So basically that means that if you do an IVF, you put a baby in, you don't get pregnant, but you have some frozen embryos that you can later go back and put those frozen embryos in instead of taking all the shots again, doing the surgery. It's a much less invasive procedure. So you get 6 IVFs, 6 frozen embryo transfers, and if you do not have a live baby that lives for 72 hours, you get 100% of your money back. And I know that sounds too good to be true, but here's why it works. It's called shared risk because you're both taking a risk. I'm taking the risk that that it could work for the first time. So basically, I could pay the $22,000 instead of $10,000, which is what one cycle cost. I could pay $22,000 and it worked the first time. And had I just paid for a single cycle, I would have only paid $10,000. So I'm taking a risk that I'm going to pay essentially double to have one child, but it guarantees that if I miscarry, that if the baby is stillborn, it guarantees, and it really just takes a lot of pressure off of you that it's like, okay, if it doesn't happen the first try, that's okay, we have another try. And that piece and that lack of pressure is worth all the money in the world in a lot of ways, you know. So we got accepted to the shared risk program. Another great thing is that they have a discount program if you are low income, which because we're both students, we are considered in the lower bracket. We applied for that program, and you can get anywhere from 5% off to 30% off. And we found out about 2 weeks ago that we did get 30% off, which I still am just blown away. So that means instead of $22,000, this IVF, which means up to 6 tries, is only costing us $15,400. This does not include meds or our pre-testing, blood test, kind of the preliminary things that we've had to do, which has been a lot. So it doesn't include that, but honestly, it's just such a blessing that we've been accepted for this program, that we got the financial aid, and we have also applied for medical financial aid on the drugs, and we have not heard back from that yet, but I'm pretty confident that since we got approved for the 30%, we're going to get approved for this, and you can get anywhere from up to 100% of your drugs covered, which your drugs can be upwards of $2,000 to $4,000 per cycle. So we have saved our tushies off and sold things and cut out Netflix, and you know, we've done everything we can to be able to have this last attempt at building our family biologically. And what's great about it is that if it doesn't work, we get all that money back, and we could then turn around and try adoption again, or we could go on a cruise and be childless. You know, it's very comforting knowing we get 100% of that money back if it doesn't work. So that's what shared risk is. That's where it brings us up to date. And I'm just so excited for you guys to follow this journey. If you guys have any questions about our story, how we met, our, you know, trying to conceive journey, our losses, what we do, why we're going to school, our process that we're now going through, the financial part, just anything, I don't know. Go ahead and submit those in the comments, and we will do a Q&A video where we answer those questions. So anyway, that's all, and stay tuned for the next episode. Adios.